Every day I drive into work through the streets of Hamilton. It's a drive that connects me to my roots. The history of this city, its grit, its toughness is evident along the way. I love this city in part because Hamilton is where my family, the Lawsons, settled. We made a living through our business Lawson Lumber, located mere blocks from Tim Hortons Field. But some of my most notable connections to this city are those my family has with the Tiger Cats. I always knew my granddad Mel Lawson played in a Grey Cup for the Hamilton Flying Wildcats, but I knew little about the team itself. As fans, the history and pride of this franchise is everywhere, from the jerseys we wear to the all-time greats and teams we celebrate. However, along the way, the story of the 1943 team was lost. This tumultuous time in history meant that many of the details were overshadowed by the Second World War. I always wanted to learn more about my grandfather's role on this team, and on the 70th anniversary of this Grey Cup, it seems about time we uncover the story of the 1943 Hamilton Flying Wildcats. The year was 1943, and Canadians were fully immersed in the Second World War. Hamiltonians were hard at work contributing to the war effort in any way they could. Thousands of men from this area were sent overseas, but the men and women who stayed in Hamilton were put to work. They were fighting from the home front.
Men and women who worked in the factories, who produced all the airplanes and the guns and the tanks and all the other stuff that is needed to fight the war. Without them, the war couldn't have been fought. Everybody was part of it, and they needed a diversion.
The diversion of choice was sports, and in Hamilton, it was football. The IRFU, which included the Hamilton Tigers, folded during the war, and that left only one football team in town, the Hamilton Flying Wildcats.
It became Hamilton's team during the war. And because there was such a good connection to the Air Force, and so many people who played on that team were in the Air Force, they added the word flying.
Hamiltonians turned out and supported the Flying Wildcats all the way through to their East final game against a Quebec team called Lachine. The Flying Wildcats went into the game as the serious underdogs, in part because their star player Joe Kroll was ill and played the game with a temperature of 110 degrees. It was a hard-fought battle, and with just minutes left in the game, the Wildcats needed a touchdown if they wanted to go to the Grey Cup. The man for the job was Paul Peterson.
I played in the backfield, halfback or fullback, and had the fumbleitis the whole game. We were on the 1 yard line, and I said to Joe Kroll, I said, Joe, give me the ball, and I promise you I won't fumble it this time. Well, he gave me the ball, and the linemen, Art Cousins and Eddie Remy, just opened up a big hole that you could drive a truck through. And I just took the ball and walked across, and there it was.
Peterson is 92 years old and is the only living member of the 43 team. Knowing that he'd played with my granddad was incredibly special. Number 6, that's my grandfather! Look at that face. He's going to the Grey Cup. Lineup's still secret, but they're saying that Mel Lawson will be in the pivot position. That game against Lachine was so incredibly rough that Art Stoley emerged too banged up to start in the finals. And so, at 20 years old, it was Mel Lawson who got the start at quarterback for the 31st Grey Cup.
Hamilton got 5 first downs in that game. Winnipeg outgained them in every department.
Midway through the first quarter, the Flying Wildcats were up 12-7 thanks to touchdowns by Smith and Fumio. Kroll was able to convert on both. Then, with just minutes left in the quarter, the Tabbies were able to widen their lead.
Mel's touchdown, it resulted when the Winnipeg tried to punt the ball out of the end zone. It was recovered, blocked. Paul Peterson took it to the 1, and then Mel ran it in from the 1 yard line. And I think Hamilton had stormed to a pretty big lead by that time, and Winnipeg tried to come back in the second half. But Hamilton's defense was their strong point.
Flying Wildcats beat the odds and won the 1943 Grey Cup 23-14.
I enjoyed it, but it was just another game.
But it wasn't just another game. In so many ways, the 43 Grey Cup made history. Under coach Brian Timmis, the win brought the cup back to Hamilton after 10 years. The game utilized unique plays that helped shape our style of football. And the game landed Mel in the record books as the youngest quarterback to ever win a Grey Cup. Although my personal connection drew me to uncovering this story, as Tiger Cat fans, it's your story too. It's the story of the great generation, a generation that lived through the Depression, the war, and in my eyes, they too were great for keeping our game alive. When you see those red jerseys and you don the black and gold in games to come, remember the extraordinary history of this team. Remember, Ticat fans, there's a legacy you are responsible for carrying on. Let's be great at sharing our story, the story of the Hamilton Tiger Cats.